Greetings, salutations, respect, and love. I am Scott, and you, my dear friends, have wandered on to the #1 Prog Rock channel on YouTube. Yeah, it's the Prog Corner hosted by me, your boy Scott, and today I got a good one for you. We're going to be investigating the gray area, right? Those, concentric circles, right? They overlap. It's like a 3D game because it's, music isn't flat, music isn't static, music isn't in 2D. It's in 3D, it's in 4D, so it gets a little weird with the nebulous rings of genres. It doesn't make any sense. So we're going to look at, this is the Prog Corner. We talk about Capital P Prog, but I've always been fascinated by those bands that kind of were Prog influenced or whatnot. And there's a lot of areas where there's intersect, right? You look in the 60s, all the way back to like the Beatles. Were they Prog? No, but... they started a whole bunch, Moody Blues, Procol Harum. You could make a case for a lot of those proto bands as being not really 100% prog. And then you move into the 70s, man. All that great stuff, the classic rock of the 70s, all of it was prog influenced. Even Lynyrd Skynyrd and Aerosmith were using Mellotron in 1973. So there's a lot of overlap there between classic rock and prog. There's also a lot of overlap between metal and prog. I'd like to, investigate that a little bit more. There's a lot of, you look at post-rock bands like Godspeed You Black Emperor and Explosions in the Sky. That sounds like prog to me. Jazz, a lot of intersect with prog. Post-rock, like I said, absolutely. Art rock, Roxy Music and 10cc and bands like that. Are they prog or not? Electronica, whole lot of overlap there. But today, I'm looking at a very specific time, a very specific sub-genre. Oh, it was a long holiday weekend, boys and girls. Today, I'm looking at the post-rock bands that came out in the late 70s and early 80s and definitely had a lot of prog influence to them, even if they were saying that prog was terrible and, wearing I Hate Pink Floyd t-shirts and whatnot. They didn't. They were listening to the music. They were just pretending like they hated prog. Like half the world pretended they hated prog. It was all a joke. It was all a put on. It was just because they didn't understand the music that was way over their head. So let's denigrate it and let's drag it. But it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't going to work. It worked for a couple of decades, man. But prog is back. And here are 12 bands that, fall under the post-rock label, but any prog fan would enjoy the music of these 12 bands, and I'm starting in Cleveland, Ohio with Pere Ubu. This band was formed in 1975 by David Thomas. No, not the guy that started Wendy's. He was from Columbus, Ohio. Same name, though, right? They were formed in 1975, and in 1978, they dropped 2 stone-cold masterpieces. Their debut album was called The Modern Dance. Their sophomore album was Dub Housing, just amazing. They've got 18 albums out. Even though they took a couple hiatuses over the years, they're still together. And if you like Avant Garage, you might just like Pere Ubu at number 11. It's Magazine, man. Oh, I love this band. Howard Devoto was in Buzzcocks, but he was interested in doing something a little bit more progressive, so he left. Pete Shelley took over the vocals duty in the Buzzcocks, but Magazine was born with the aforementioned Howard Devoto, John McGough, who later on would join Susie and the Banshees, Barry Adamson, the great Dave Formula, and Martin Jackson. Those were the 5 that were the early version of Magazine. And man, their first 3 albums are just incredible, especially 1978's Real Life. Great album cover. Oh, and the single shot from both sides, man. I love that track. One of the best songs ever written. The next year, Secondhand Daylight came out. And in 1980, The Correct Use of Soap. Those 3 albums are amazing. They put out some more stuff, but John McGough had left to join Susie and the Banshees, so it wasn't the same. But those first 3 Magazine albums, unbelievable. At number 10, it's the aforementioned John Lydon in his I Hate Pink Floyd t-shirt. He was lying about that. He was a big fan of Vandergraaf Generator, and once the Sex Pistols imploded, he wanted to do something more progressive. So he got a hold of Jah Wobble and Keith Levine, and formed Pill. Their first album had a guy named Jimmy Walker on drums, but after that they used a variety of different drummers, and there were a whole bunch of people in Pill over the years. They were formed, like I said, right after the Pistols broke up in 1978, and they dropped their first album, First Issue. It's awesome. But then, man, that second album, Metal Box, whatever you want to call it, it came, as a regular piece of vinyl and a regular, sleeve. But it also came in the metal box, which was just cool and mind-blowing and awesome. What a great album. And then their third album is really cool, too, Flowers of Romance from 1981. But they add a punk edge to world music and dub and noise. And I love Pill, man. They got a little more pop. They actually had a couple hits. I just had an eyelash fall in my eye, boys and girls, in real time. Hey, this is going to be a fun video here. Get out of my eyeball. Man, I don't want to hit delete on this thing. We're just going to try to muddle through like we always do at number 9, man. It's the Gang of Four, formed in Leeds in 1976, and I am a big fan of this band, formed by John King, Andy Gill, Dave Allen, and Hugo Burnham. Yeah, they were a little lefties, a little commie in their lyrics, but I don't care. All are welcome here. Entertainment from 1979, probably my favorite debut album of all time. I think I rate it above King Crimson and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, and maybe even the Clash's first album as my favorite debut album of all time. A couple years after Entertainment, they dropped Solid Gold in 1981, and then they got Sarah Lee on bass and dropped Songs of the Free and Hard in 82 and 83. They were not as good, but man, those first two Gang of Four albums, if you like dissonant guitar work and really cool polyrhythms and stuff, man, Gang of Four is just really cool. At number 8, we're going to CBGB, yeah. We're going to New York City and Tom Verlaine's little band Television. He's joined by Richard Lloyd. They only put out 2 albums, man. Of course, Marquee Moon, 1977, their absolute classic. And they only had one more album the following year, 1978, Adventure. A little more mellow, not quite as adventuresome as the debut, but what a great band. Originally, Richard Hell was in the band, so he left to go solo, and they hired a guy named Fred Smith, who had been playing in Blondie, to join the band, and Billy Fica on drums. He later on went ahead and joined the Great Waitresses. Man, I love Television. What a great band. At number 7, here's a band that was, kind of in the punk category, but, by the time their 4th album rolled around, they were anything but. They were in a whole different league. It's the Stranglers, man. Yeah, their early stuff was really cool. No More Heroes and, records like that, Black and White. But, man, their 4th album, The Rave in 1979, they followed it up with the absolute masterpiece, their 5th album, The Gospel According to the Men in Black in 81. Also in 81, La Folie, which had the big hit Golden Brown, and Feline in 83. What a great period for the Stranglers, led by Hugh Cornwell on vocals. The great Dave Greenfield on keyboards, R.I.P. A big reason why Stranglers might appeal to proggers is the keyboards. Jean-Jacques Burnel and Jet Black round out the lineup. What a great band the Stranglers were, whatever. At number 6, it's Robert Smith and the Kier, man. I've always loved the Kier. They were formed in West Sussex in 1978 by Robert Smith. And, the only person who's kind of been in the band the whole time with him is a guy named Simon Gallup. He was not on the first album, and he was not on, their 5th album, The Top, but he's been on all the rest of them. They've got a total of 13 albums. Their debut album was Three Imaginary Boys in 1979, but the U.S. Released a compilation album called Boys Don't Cry, and I'm spotlighting that. It actually came out in February of 1980, but it's primarily the U.S. version of the debut. But other great records, man, they had a great run early on. 1980, 17 Seconds, Faith from 81, Pornography from 82, The Top from 84, Head on the Door in 85. What a great record that was. Kiss Me, Kiss Me, Kiss Me in 87, and Disintegration in 89. But I'm spotlighting, like I said, that debut American album, Boys Don't Cry. Just amazing. I love The Cure. At number 5, it's Ultravox. And yeah, I'm putting the exclamation point in there. They dropped the exclamation point after their first 2 albums. But I just love their first three a whole bunch. I'm a big John Fox guy. I love the Majura era, where you had Vienna and Rage and Quartet. Those were great records, but the first three with John Fox on vocals, man. The debut album, 1977, produced by Brian Eno. The second album from 1977, also produced by Steve Lillywhite. It is my favorite with the amazing track Hiroshima Mon Amour. And then Stephen Shears leaves the band, and for their third album, Systems of Romance in 1978, they actually employ the services of Connie Plank, and he produced their next few albums, all the way up through Quartet, which was produced by none other than George Martin. At number 4, it's another New York band. You knew we wouldn't have all British bands here. It's the Talking Heads, formed in 1975 in New York City. David Burns, Chris Frantz, Tina Weymouth, and Jerry Harrison, who's been touring with Adrian Belew of late. That would be a pretty great show. But I love Talking Heads. Yeah, they are in Prog Archives as a Prog-related band. I love all 8 of their albums, man. 1977. More songs about building and food in 78. Fear of Music in 79. What is that? Remain in Light, that was their big one in 1980. Speaking in Tongues in 83. Little Creatures, I love it. True Stories in 86. And their last album, Naked, I love that one too in 88. But my favorite is the third album, the Brian Eno produced Fear of Music. I just love it with Ice Zimba. It definitely pointed the way to, some of the African rhythms and some of the other stuff, the more progressive stuff they were doing. But when you've got Adrian Belew and Brian Eno in your camp, you're definitely progressive. At number 3, it's Wire, man. Probably the band I think of first when I think of post-rock. Formed in London in 1976 by Colin Newman, Graham Lewis, Bruce Gilbert, and Robert Gray. Bruce Gilbert not in the band anymore, but the other 3 are still doing it as Wire. They've got 17 albums out, and those first 3 albums are unimpeachable, man. The first one was kind of a punk rock record, Pink Flag, 1977, but by the following year, 78, Chairs Missing, things were changing, man. They were a totally different sounding band. And by the time they get to their third album, 154 in 1979, they were just a straight up progressive band. Weird, different, creating their own universe. I'd never heard anything like 154. I just absolutely love that band. Love that album. At number 2, it's Japan. Oh, yeah, led by David Sylvian and Steve Jansen, who I just found out they were brothers, man. I didn't even know that. All these years I've been listening to Japan, I had no idea they were brothers. I guess they changed their name once they got a record contract. They are, of course, joined by the great Richard Barbieri. And if you know anything about modern prog, you absolutely know who he is as the keyboard player for the great Porcupine Tree, and Rob Dean on guitar. This was a band that started out kind of as glam electronica with a lot of androgynous kind of visuals to go along with it. People weren't really responding that well, but man, I loved it. Their third album, Quiet Life, really cut through for me. Their fourth album, Gentlemen Take Polaroids, I love that. But it's their fifth album from 1981, Tin Drum, I'm spotlighting. What an absolute masterpiece that is. They did come back 10 years later and drop a sixth album, but they didn't call themselves Japan at this point. They were calling themselves Rain Tree Crow. Another great album, but man, Tin Drum, if you don't know Japan, check that record out. Your life is probably going to change as a result. And finally, I think you guys know who I've got at number 1 for my gray area post-punk bands. It's XTC. Yeah, they were formed way back in the 70s. They called themselves the Helium Kids, and they went through a couple different names, but they settled on XTC. And why is XTC a band? Proggers need to know. Well, first of all, Andy Partridge has worked with Peter Blevgad from Slap Happy, worked with Mike Kennelly from the Zappa band. It's just unbelievable. David Gregory worked with Big Big Train, man. Come on. How prog is that? Barry Andrews worked with Robert Fripp and Sarah Lee in the League of Gentlemen. That's pretty prog. And Colin Moulding, he's worked with Jeff Downs. He's worked with Rick Wakeman. And he worked with Days Between Stations, a very cool prog band. But XTC is prog. I'm sorry, I know they're not in Prog Archives. I know they don't have any 20-minute epics, man. But when I think of progressive music, XTC's right up there near the top of the list. They're not Capital P Prog, but that's not what this series is all about. And like I said, we've got a lot of different areas that we can go into, like metal bands that, kind of sound prog, or a whole lot of different areas. So maybe this will be a series. We'll see how the numbers are. If the numbers are good, we'll keep doing it. Anyway, tomorrow I'm going to be reviewing the new album by Monarch Trail, man. I love this thing. I can't wait to talk to you guys about it. It's a really, really good record. Still got something in my eyeball. Really annoying. But anyway, man, I love you guys. Peace in the Middle East. Free Tibet. And God save the king. Save King Chucky. Save King Chucky. Save him right now. That boy could use your saving. Save him right now. Yes, indeed. I'll see you punks tomorrow. Peace.